I have the great fortune of having with me an amazing dude, Devon Larratt, like world champion arm wrestler. So today we're going to talk about all things arm wrestling. Devon.
Hey, buddy, thank you for having me.
No worries.
We're practically neighbors.
Hey, well, this is what I'm discovering. You said Richmond, so
Just down the road from you.
close. Good, that's cool. So we got to talk more often.
Yeah.
So look, listen. Obviously, today we're talking about arm wrestling. And first of all, I got to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come spend, a little bit of time with me and educate me. I'm always about learning. So this is something I'm going to learn about today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor and privilege to be on your platform.
Oh, jeez, man. You're buttering me up with the flowery words. But thank you very much, brother. So let's get right to it. So Devon, tell me, why professional arm wrestling?
Yeah, great question. Why? So arm wrestling is a fight sport. Okay, so the whole reason why people do fight sports, arm wrestling's right in that group.
Yep.
Okay, the rush you get, there's a path to self-betterment. Once you kind of get into the sport, you realize that it's like a miniature martial art. So there's a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. And that's fascinating when you see like a little dude beat a big dude, or what seems to be a weak old man win world championships. All these things are intriguing, and it's a path to self-discovery, and like all sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I have my list of questions, but something you just said there tweaked a thought in my head. So obviously in your sport, you're familiar with the schoolboy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because when I first saw, it wasn't until recently that I actually learned a little bit more about him. Mm-hmm. I just saw him on the thumbnails, and the way that they make the thumbnails, they make it seem like he's a little schoolboy.
Oh my God.
But then I heard how much this dude actually weighs, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not surprised anymore.
We are basically exactly the same size.
Yeah.
Schoolboy and I. Yeah. He might actually be a tiny bit bigger. He's a young man. Yeah. He actually 2 days ago just tore his bicep.
Oh, really?
He blew his bicep snowboarding. Yeah.
not even arm wrestling.
No.
Okay.
Super talented kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so him and his brother run that.
Yep.
Does his brother also arm wrestle?
He's also very, very good. Both these brothers, they're Russian.
Yeah.
Okay. Alex is the older brother.
Yeah.
And he lives down in Miami.
Yep.
And yeah, he's a pro arm wrestler. He kicks ass. But more famously, his younger brother, their parents with Russian creativity called him Alexander. Great name.
Yeah. Easy to remember.
Yeah, so he's still over there, but they get together all the time and they collab, and yeah, they both kick ass. They're both basically world level arm wrestling guys. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Devon, tell me, how did you make the transition from your previous career into professional arm wrestling? And by the way, it's funny, I knew of you long before arm wrestling. Just for whatever reason, having an interest before I joined, having an interest in the Canadian Forces, your name was legendary.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, no.
but anyway, so tell me, how did you make the transition from your previous career to professional arm wrestling?
Well, I arm wrestled from the time I was a kid. Okay, so I grew up with arm wrestling. I arm wrestled in the regular force. They used to sponsor me. The regular force used to send me to championships. Got to the special forces, and obviously, changed things a lot, right? What happened? It's really crazy. I loved my old job, and I don't even like to call it a job, right? But I loved that life, and I love arm wrestling. Those are two of my big passions in life, and it's interesting that those two, arm wrestling is actually probably what made me have to leave the forces.
Oh, really?
It's probably the reason I had to leave. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but what happened in around 2014, So I used to, like when I used to compete, because I competed all through, I used to downplay everything. I used to say I was a farmer. I'd shy away from cameras and media, didn't have a YouTube. And then around 2014, 15, arm wrestling started to pop. Yeah, ESPN picked us up. There was shows, and my ego kind of was wanting to be in the spotlight a little bit, and it just wasn't jiving. So I made the cut at that time pretty much. They moved me into recruiting.
Yes.
So I finished out my career so I could be a little bit more public. And then I took the jump, man. And that was wild, going from having a job and having an income with kids and a family to I'm going to be a professional arm wrestler.
But the potential to make this potential for income is way higher.
It is for sure. But at the same time, I really love it. I love the community. I love to compete. It's something I can do my whole life. Life is a twisty, turny thing, but I do think that I'll be involved in the sport of arm wrestling until I die. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Now, so when you made that transition, was there anything about it? You're going from your previous career to this. Was there anything about it that you found challenging? Since you've been doing it all that time, was there anything about that transition other than, I guess, the loss of regular income? Was there anything else that you found challenging?
Well, I think that, people think that they're professionals, in whatever it is they choose to spend their time at. You think that you're on a level, or you think that you're some kind of an expert. I mean, even if you are a world champion, you probably think you're pretty good at it. And that was kind of the case with me. In 2008, I was working, but I was a world champion at the same time. And then what happened was, by 2016, 17, I had become a full-time arm wrestler. So by 2017, 18, and what I realized is that there was still so much to learn in terms of professionalism, and even when you're at a level, you constantly have to humble yourself and remind yourself that you're a human being with 40 or something years on the planet, which is still, relatively in any kind of scale and any kind of thing is still very small.
Yes.
So there's always things to learn, so you have to always be willing to go back and revisit lessons and continue to learn and never think that you know, because the more we learn, the more things simplify and purify, and then you figure out that you were wrong about everything.
Yeah. It's funny, as you're saying that, I was thinking about thinking back to when I was training in Taekwondo, and so I'm working my way up the belt system, and I never ended up getting my black belt just because of time commitments with training for orthopedics and whatnot. But at that time, I was a red belt, and I was testing for my black stripe. So red belt, black stripe, and then black belt. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be a black belt, and it's going to be awesome. Like, I know shit. And I remember my instructor saying, like, you have it all backwards, man. Like, black belt just means that you know the basics of the system, and that you are capable of learning. And then after that is when the real learning starts.
Right?
Right? And this guy was a third dan black belt, and he trained under a guy who in Ottawa here, Tae Lee, who was like a fifth dan, and it's like, so, like, yeah, black belt means absolutely nothing. You think it means something, but
it's a scale. It's a scale. I find the further I go, the more things are refined and simplified.
Yes.
And it's the simplification process where the real truth lies. Yeah.
that idea of simplification makes me think of how in orthopedic surgery, like the first time I learned a procedure, it's like, okay, well, I know all the 10 steps and I can do those 10 steps. You tell me the 10 steps, I can do the 10 steps. But what defines the difference between when I first learned that procedure and when I did that like 100 cases later is that, oh, on the 100th one, I know, oh, I don't have to do those 10 steps, man. I could do steps 2, 6, and 7 and get the same result. And it's everything is simplification.
Minimum viable product.
Yes.
It's the one thing that's the most important thing becomes everything.
Yeah. So tell me, you mentioned a little bit before the nature of martial arts, okay, of which arm wrestling is one. Given your previous profession, are there similarities between your previous career and your present occupation now?
I remember when I was a child, my father, his father was involved in the war on our side, on the North American side.
Yep.
My mother's side of the family is German, and they would fight. They would fight and fight and fight, and all they talk about was the war. Right, because it was very intimate to them.
Yes.
Right, and my mother's mother was actually an Olympian, and sometimes the conversation would somehow blend between her stories of skiing and the stories from the war. And my father would relay to me that sports, every sport is derived from war. All sports are derivatives of war. It's a civilized way that we can compete with each other without
killing each other.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing, right? Sports is a building of civilization and humanity. And I mean, we could argue, so is war at times. However, war is much more serious and much more rough and farther away from humanity, I suppose, further away from civilized behavior.
Yep.
So, but the higher up you go in the levels of combative sport, the more it starts to approach lessons that you'll learn in war. Things like, surprise and initiative and obviously the discipline it requires to do well in this field. I mean, they're very transferable. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for sure, war is so serious. Sport can be as well.
Yes. No doubt. So one of the things that you also talked about a little bit was training. So tell me, how do you train for arm wrestling?
Oh, as a doctor, you are gonna have some serious objections to me.
Well, so before you answer, let me tell you, so like I said, I knew of you. I knew you of you long before your sort of jump from the forces into full-time professional. And I remember some of the first videos that you must have put out that were available on YouTube. Okay. And I just remember watching them and like going, what is this man doing? These workouts are like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So tell me, how you train?
Well, I've trained many different ways across my career.
Yep.
And where I've gotten to now is quite an evolution. And it's with the intentions to be as good as I can.
Yes.
Okay. There is sacrifice, and there is a belief that I'm very mortal in my training system. So I go away a little bit from some of the, I'd say, common practices of health and balance that, we hold on to dearly in most things that, health professionals and athletes advocate for. So it's been a progression for me. I've certainly been involved in lots of sports, trained my whole body to do many things across my career. It's come to a point now where I am an arm wrestler basically exclusively. Like I don't really train my body to do much else other than that. Okay, so basically exercises and training systems fell away until a transition point about 3 years ago. And I made these decisions based off of things that I've seen. I call it Way of the Giant Pumpkin.
Okay.
Okay.
Explain.
Do you know about giant pumpkins?
No.
Okay, so you never seen giant pumpkins?
No, I know what they are, but I don't know anything about them other than they're huge.
Right, they're massive.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that was my goal. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
To make one giant pumpkin.
Okay.
Okay, so what I did was I pinched off all the other flowers on the vine.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was left with only one thing. It's my right hand.
Okay.
So
Although you guys do go both
we
arms.
do.
Okay.
But I refer to this as the party hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All my energy,
Yep.
all my homework
Yeah.
is just right-handed arm wrestling.
Okay.
I train specifically 3 or 4 times a day, just training the movements of arm wrestling,
Yep.
just with my right hand.
Okay.
And it's been this way for about 3 years. Okay, so I break my training probably into 3 families. Okay, the one would be practical application of the sport. Okay, which is the big part of it, and it's the fun part of it. It's the part that I practice with the club here in Ottawa and when I travel, and it's basically just low intensity arm wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just getting on the table and practicing. The other would be what I would say is conditioning and rehab, which I spend a lot of time on. Ligaments and tendons take a beating. Okay, they require constant maintenance and upgrading. So a lot of my stuff is just to push fluids through them, keep them healthy, basically just pump.
Yep.
Just pump fluids through, high rep, low effort, at regular intervals, every day lifestyle.
Yep.
And the last one is strength and specific movements.
Okay.
Yeah, which also I do every day, and it's very simple. Just a couple movements I really focus on. That's it.
Okay.
That's it, yeah.
So you said that you've trained multiple different ways over the years. So one of the things that I wonder about, now that you've been in this for whatever, this sport for 20 plus years or whatever.
Almost 30 now, I guess.
Yeah. So, is there a move? And you mentioned just a little bit. You do some of your work is for sort of maintenance and rehab. Is there a move for you to focus? Well, here, let me back up for a second. I had a conversation with one of your ex-colleagues who's also retired now, and we were talking about rehabilitation for tactical operators, Randy Turner.
Oh, great
and
guy.
And he was saying how he's counseled some young guys who are either trying to get on the force, who are on the force, and they're all just about bigger, faster, stronger, bigger, faster, stronger, bigger, faster, stronger. That's all they care about. And then as he got older, he realized, whether it was training for the forces or training for MMA, it's not just about bigger, faster, stronger. It's bigger, faster, stronger, but also what's longevity, right? Maintenance, longevity. So do you find that when you look at your training progression over the years, has the sort of maintenance and longevity taken a more prominent role, or were you always doing that?
Much more prominent. And yeah, health is performance. Like those two things, the more health you have, and it's almost even that simple. Like if you focus on increasing your health, your performance, you don't even have to necessarily train for performance. Just by becoming healthier, you perform better. So it was an interesting kind of point where my rehab really took on a life of its own. It was long ago, so I've been focusing on rehab for over a decade now. Okay, so rehab is probably one of the biggest pieces of it's probably what I spend the most time on out of all the blocks. And it's been that way, just continuing to grow for over a decade. What happened was In arm wrestling, when I was young, old arm wrestlers used to say, "Oh, Devon, this is a tendon sport. It's a ligament sport." And I never really understood it because I'm like, the muscles are doing the work here. Like what? Like, I mean, but you don't notice until the tendons and ligaments become an issue. Right? And then you realize, okay, this is what's holding me back.
Yeah.
My right arm, by 2012, was a disaster. I had multiple surgeries. You pick something that's wrong with an arm, and I had it. Okay. So I always said, big brother, little brother. Okay, whatever big brother did, little brother followed.
Yeah.
Okay. So it forced me to, through some research and understanding, I started to get an understanding of the difference between training ligaments and tendons as opposed to training muscles. And I watched a very interesting documentary called Strolling Under the Skin.
Okay.
And that's where they went in with microscopes and they observed the fluid movement through the structures.
Yeah.
And they realized that they only feed when they move.
Move, yeah.
Right? So you have to move them, right? So I started to realize this, so I started to change the way that I train just to feed my connective structures, to feed them. Not even going for performance, and just feed the structures. And because my right was such a disaster, my left was doing the same workouts, and probably for about 3 months, because it was in terrible shape, I probably didn't work out with more than 20 or 25 pounds tops, which for super heavyweight arm wrestling is
It's nothing.
no. And I had a title shot with the left arm at that time, and I obliterated the dude. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, so basically after that, it really just became more and more part of my constant, everyday routine. Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is interesting that you touched on, in a conversation with Randy, we were talking about the young guys incorporating rehab into their training, because when you spend like more than $1 million to train a guy, it doesn't make any sense to have this guy laid up on the sideline. And I said to him, he was talking about how it's a hard sell to get the young guys to do the rehab stuff and all that kind of work. And I said, but you end up, just by virtue of keeping them on the playing field longer, you end up being more, like, just as you said, you don't have to do anything more effectively just because they are there more, right? You are still increasing the overall effectivity of the force, right? Because instead of having this piece taken off the board, it's still there. So it's the same kind of thing, like you know, you're not necessarily training bigger, faster, stronger, but because you can just do more work, because you've done all the rehab, maintained the health of the tissues, you're able to put in more work overall. And in the long run, like it is a long-term outlook rather than a short-term outlook.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
man. You need to feed your tendons and ligaments.
Well, I did a video about Larry Wheels. He was working with he was just doing a YouTube video with a bodybuilder, Ryan Crowley, and they were doing incline. Incline bench, blew the pec. And it's like, and I did a video and I was trying to explain to people, like, Ryan Crowley has muscles that are big enough to do that.
Right.
But he has not, like Larry, trained his tendons over time to withstand that load. So he ends up blowing the pec tendon, not because he's weak, it's just because he has not acclimate, like he's used to doing submaximal loads and doing lots of them, but he's not used to doing like 1 RM max of heavy weight.
There's a ton of factors that go into why an injury happened, but it does not negate the requirement to do that stuff, to prevent and then do it afterwards to fix, because in any field, injury's going to happen.
For sure.
It's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, talking about your previous training or your previous career, you mentioned a little bit about this. Is there anything, being what you were previously employed as and being that this is a martial art of sorts, is there anything from your previous training that you think specifically was transferable to pro arm wrestling? And I'm not just talking, so this question is entirely open, so physical things and mental things.
I think from a physical perspective, I would say that, the physical skills of being an operator to being a professional arm wrestler, the transfer is almost nil. Okay, like if I was creating a special forces guy, I wouldn't care that he could arm wrestle at all. Like to me, it's low requirement. But that whole time you are very much a physical being.
Yes.
Very much. So all the times that I had to fix myself and train myself and overall body work, I was learning that whole time. And all that information is transferable to any field because you're learning your body, you're learning how the systems work, you're learning how to get strong, you're learning how to perform. So there's that. I would say that much more was the mental side of things. The whole fight aspect, I would say comparatively to my peers in arm wrestling, I'm way ahead, because of the seriousness of the level of conflict that you train for as an operator. You are going in and the stakes are as high as you can get, right? So, with that kind of stress, I'd say I wouldn't maybe call it competency or stress. You're used to a level of pressure. You're not going to get that pressure on the arm wrestling table. But let me tell you, you can elevate it. You can elevate it through all sorts of ways where you are still very comfortable and the other guy might not be. Well,
so, my next question, and this perfect segue is like, so do you think, like, when you think about the situations that you've been involved in your previous career, many of which were like super hairy, right? So do you think, and I know what the answer will be, but do you think that it gives you a mental edge, right? Like, cause I think about you, it's always funny. I'll watch videos of the guy staring you down. And then I think and I just think in my head, I go, you have no idea. Like they have no idea. It's like, what does this mean to him? Like compared to what you've seen in the past.
When you talk about transference and stuff, for sure, my overall stress, like my heart rate is not gonna go like that. Like it's just not gonna be enough to trigger. But the thing is for me is like you do that job for, I was at the Hill for, 16 years, Forces for 20. And I think you just get very used to a level of stress. You're just very normal. And then when you leave, it's part of you. It's and you seek it out. So you just that level of excitement, that level of stress, you still try and create it. In your life, you try and create it in scenarios, and you're always trying to push, right? So yeah, that's one of the things that I've brought to the sport is I've tried to add stress into the pool so that it's so much about making mistakes, and I don't know that that stress tolerance is going to necessarily make you win a match. However, it will certainly make you destroy a dude who's faltering. So sometimes a match could maybe be close, but if a guy isn't good with pressure, and you are, you can totally destroy him, which is very, very appealing. For my twisted soul. Right?
Yeah.
It's I'll tell you, I miss it a lot. Because all the stress in arm wrestling. I mean, it's fun and it's great, but it's nothing like that. And you do miss it. So to all the guys who are serving and still serving, enjoy your time, guys, because you're gonna be some old veteran.
You're gonna be a normal human afterwards.
Trying to get his kicks arm wrestle dude in the bar.
Yeah, shit. There you go. Now let's get to the meat of this. What are some of the injuries? You talked about your right arm. So what are some of the injuries that you've had as a result of being a professional arm wrestler?
So my biggest ones are chronic, and they're a result of just too much for too long without enough recovery or whatever. Most of my bad stuff is arthritic changes, just due to joints being under a lot of pressure. That's straight.
It's funny, every time I watched you or I see videos of you arm wrestling, I watch you walking, and I watch the carrying angle of your elbows, and I was like, well, is that because he's got his biceps are so developed that he's got contractures, or is that arthritis?
Arthritis. Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's a combination of arthritis and adaptation. So I once went downtown. Jay Pollock fixed me up many times. Cleaned me out, and I was able to straighten fully. But then within months,
it's back.
Right back where it was. It's not boning at that point.
Right.
At that point, that's the capsule and everything kind of retracting again to protect itself. So it's both, so that's a very common one. And not everybody gets it. It's like cauliflower ears. Some guys get it, some guys don't. Right. So I get that. Some guys get shoulder issues. A lot elbow. Elbow is the common arthritic changes point. Shoulder often is an imbalance. Okay, guys get really strong internal. And so they get a slow dislocation happening, leads to more arthritic changes. You will get dislocations of your wrist. You can see my wrist, right? You see my right. It looks like it's permanently kind of out. So there's that. You'll get muscle tears. You'll get muscles separating totally, you'll get the bicep will blow, typically at the base. Sometimes mid-muscular, sometimes from the top. Pec will tear. Those are all quite common tears. Bicep, pec. And then of course you have the arm break. And that's always the same. It's a spiral fracture. Just right above the elbow joint. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Happens a lot with new guys. Guys who don't arm wrestle, girls who don't arm wrestle. Happens all the time. People in arm wrestling try and be oh, it's not. No, it's bad.
For sure.
People be popping their arms arm wrestling all the time.
Which is why I said to you before, I don't even want to guys, if we're at a bar or whatever, and guys are let's arm. It's I don't even want to go there, because I just think to myself, now, and you're going to explain to me, but in my mind, I said, oh, this is a rotational problem. I don't train that ever. Sure, in the OR, I'm hitting hammer, I'm doing, and, working out, I'm doing lots of linear things, but I'm never doing anything rotation. I go, oh shit, I need my arms to operate. I don't want to do that. But, so you explain to me, people always say, or they think, oh, they got to train rotation. Why is that not the case?
Right. So, there's many schools of thought, okay? And if you talk to 100 arm wrestlers, probably quite a lot of them will tell you that it's rotational. Okay. I'm smarter than they are.
Please tell me, educate.
There's a lot of ways you can do this game, but in my opinion, this internal rotation and spiral pressure it's not at all what the sport is about.
Okay.
I don't even train it.
Okay.
I don't do it ever.
Okay.
Arm wrestling is about height. Yeah, it's about extent. It's about attacking weakness.
Yes.
So when we arm wrestle, okay, so there's this whole thing I'm trying to fight, okay? It's not about going where you're strong. People think, oh, I'm strong like this.
Yeah.
It's just about attacking weakness.
Okay.
The weakest part of this whole system is the fingertips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we arm wrestle, I'm just pulling up. I just pull up into your fingers.
Okay.
That's it.
Because that's the weakest part of the chain.
Yeah.
Smallest muscles. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So you pull up, and that's what so much of the arm wrestling fight is about at the highest level.
Okay.
Who has more of this up drive? We call it rising.
Yes.
Okay. Because it's not just with the bicep; it extends all the way through the hand. This ability to climb.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's very important.
Okay.
And then there's pronation. So these two are probably your biggest strengths. This rising.
Yeah.
This rolling. Some people get things confused. This side pressure, this internal rotation, it's the last thing.
Okay.
It's the very last thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's not a part of arm wrestling, but it's the last part of arm wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, I'll say that there's maybe 4 or 5 chains worth talking about. Okay, there's this rising chain.
Yes.
Okay, this upwards drive.
Yep.
This dictates everything. Mm-hmm. Whoever has more rise has more efficiency, has more technical choice. The other person has to hold on to. Everything falls apart. Mm-hmm. Whoever wins the rise basically wins the match in high level arm wrestling.
Okay.
There's this pronation chain. I always like to show this, right? So that's the ability to turn your palm over, right? Yeah. Which couples with this strength we call cupping, wrist flexion, but it's a chain, right? But this is not this.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is all, you're designed to do this.
Correct.
Yeah. So this, when you think of doing this to your opponent, mm-hmm. what that does is it turns their palm up. Mm-hmm. Right, so this cupping and pronation work together.
Yeah.
So basically, when you rise up,
yeah,
it forces your opponent to have to cup if they want to stay in the match, mm-hmm. or at least move their shoulder forward. And if they try and cup, then you can pronate. Mm-hmm. And if you successfully pronate through their wrist, they have no hand. Mm-hmm. Then all they're left with is this ability to push and break their arm if they want to break it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that point you shouldn't try.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point you should understand that you've lost.
Well, so it's funny, because you talk about all these chains, and I'm like I understand that there's different parts to the process, different parts to the game, but it's like you break it down into all these steps. I'm like, holy shit. And I think, the young guys or girls, they don't recognize all these different parts. And so they're like left with, oh my God.
Right. So, I mean, what I tell people, what I tell everybody is, everybody loves to arm wrestle. And I'm happy when I see kids do it. Mm-hmm. Because typically kids aren't strong enough to hurt themselves.
Yes.
Stuff starts to change around puberty. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I always tell people is if you're going to arm wrestle on tables, get some padding for your elbow because it's not good on hard surface. Get some padding. If you have a strap, that's great, but I don't expect people to walk around with a strap. I have strap everywhere.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Changes arm wrestling a little bit. But to practice on a table, to go slow, get with a club. Get with a club. If you're interested in the sport of arm wrestling, know that you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You will hurt yourself.
Yeah.
If you like the idea of the sport, learn the basic exercises. This rising, it's a variation of a curl. Just basically instead of curling, you're putting more emphasis in this upwards movement.
Okay. Yep.
You have the variation of a curl through the thumb. So you're curling, but you're using your thumb with a belt.
Yeah.
And then you have just basically rowing with an emphasis on your wrist.
Yeah.
If you do those three things, you're gonna just start to feel these movements, and they're gonna become natural to you. And then when you get an arm wrestling table, you're gonna do and you're gonna feel it very easily. But yeah, to the untrained, unknowing person, which I was, everybody just
cranks it. So, so all of these different movements that you talk about, how much of it when you're in a match, okay, or even just practicing, how much of it is like you paying attention, looking at the guy, watching what he's doing, versus you just feeling it? Like you feel where the pressure is going. You go, oh, okay, I know. Yep, that's happening. Bang. Right. This is happening. Yeah. Like how much of it is feel? How much of it is you watching?
The longer you do it, the more it's just feel. And part of it is you can be ahead of the person and they're having to react to you. Okay, so sometimes you don't even have to think what they're doing, because you are going to do what you're going to do.
Yep.
And you can do it better than they can, and they're going to have to react to you. And then there's some adjustments for sure that start to be played. But you do have to be able to feel, you have to be able to understand the movements of the game. I'll say that there's three concepts. Okay, this is going to be maybe a bit tricky. I'll try and explain it here. So the first concept is that you actually legit have to be strong at the movements.
Yes.
There's no getting around it.
Sure.
And those movements are the basic the rise, the cup, the roll, the supinate, the grip and drag, okay? These are basic movements, basic chains that no matter your style of arm wrestling, because it's like a martial art, every arm wrestler probably, they have their style, or maybe they got a couple styles, but they'll say, okay, I still, even though I don't practice it, I understand that style has a place.
Yes.
People win world championships with just this chain and a little bit of balance around it. So first you have to be strong. The second thing you have to understand is, now this is when you come to a weaker person beating a stronger person, which happens all the time, okay, is you can never fight a losing battle. Okay, so what that means is you try and do your thing, you're going to get beat trying to do your thing. So you have to be able to retreat. And that's the thing about the hand and the wrist and the arm, is there's so many contradictory motions. If I'm trying to go this way as hard as I can and I can't do it, well, maybe if I go this way as hard as I can, there'll be a hole somewhere for me to fit in. Right? So you have to be able to not fight a losing battle. You have to be able to recognize when you're being overwhelmed, to have an option elsewhere.
Yes.
Okay. And the third rule, okay, is how to respond to this person who is adjusting to you. And this is a very interesting rule. It's to not take what's being given to you. Right, because there are fundamental rules of arm wrestling, okay? This rise, this cup, this roll, this keeping the arm inside your body. It's what we call fundamental arm wrestling. Go outside that, you're doing defensive arm wrestling, okay, which totally works, okay? But as soon as you recognize somebody's defensive arm wrestling, they're giving you something. They're giving you one of those aspects. They're giving you their pronation. They're giving you their cup. They're giving you something so that they can get in somewhere else. And the most important thing is to not take what they're giving you and actually go the opposite direction, which is very counterintuitive. And this is one of the separation points in a person's technical understanding of the sport. Yeah, and the problem is to be able to do it fast enough. And that's when it comes to the whole feel thing. Yeah, guys who practice the sport for 10 years or more, they start to be able to really recognize. And by the way, I always say that any dude who's like a healthy guy, and I'm not even that interested in the weight. So basically, once you're like a 150-pound guy and you're a healthy dude, 4 years of solid arm wrestling training, and you will beat just about anybody.
Really?
Yeah, just about. Yeah. Like there are outliers, of course, but like pretty much once you got like 4 or 5 years in the sport, you'll beat anybody who doesn't train. They can be a big jack, powerlifter, monster, strongman, whatever. You're just gonna beat them.
And is that because of just the having the fundamentals down?
the fundamentals, the strengths will become strong enough that you'll technically be able to put people in positions where it's just no good choices for them. Like regular people will not understand what's important.
Yeah.
And they will give things away. And then what happens is a trained guy will have all this stuff.
Yeah. He said, "Oh, you did that!
Right.
Oh boy!"
Right? Yeah. So, and that's why it's like a martial art, right? Like because like I know like I'm a bigger, stronger dude, you know, and I even have martial arts experience. I do, but I know that 160-pound dude with cauliflower ears who lives on a mat and has got, you know, rashes all over his legs. I don't want to touch him.
Yeah.
He's gonna mess me up, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do one mistake and it's done.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in arm wrestling. You make one mistake and it's just gonna get worse.
It's funny. So Randy has.
I was actually talking about Randy. That's who I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen. But so he said to me a few times, you know, just come down and like I got open gym on Saturday or whatever, and we can roll and stuff. Yeah. And I just think to myself, okay, I outweigh this dude by 60 pounds, but I'm not really interested. He's gonna. I know. Like
but he'll be good to you. Randy's a good guy.
No, for sure he would. But I just think, this is gonna be a lesson in humility.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
You know. So tell me something now. When you're in a match, right? Like, do you know right from the start? Oh, okay, yeah, I got this, or is it much more of a point counterpoint battle back and forth where you're not sure how it's going to go and you're just looking for openings, looking for mistakes?
You can always learn, right? And you can be taught things that you didn't know were coming.
Yep.
But at the level that I'm pulling at, I start to have a very good idea very quickly. I typically will have a very good idea basically as soon as I touch your hand.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. Most arm wrestlers, you know, we shake hands. I can tell right there. Yeah.
Just by the way,
Just by the way you touch me, I can pretty much tell if you're gonna give me a problem or not.
Well, having said that, are there guys that sandbag?
Yeah, but even then you can tell. You can tell, yeah.
Even when they're trying to sandbag?
The best guys are sandbagging.
Okay, yeah.
The best arm wrestlers will sandbag you right to the grave.
Okay.
Yeah. They will not show you their cards, but you'll know because they should. You won't feel it. You'll be like, why aren't I feeling this, and this, and this? And then you'll be like, okay, this guy's hiding. He hides this and this. And the best guys don't show you anything. And that's the thing about holding on. And this rise thing, right? Like great arm wrestlers will never hold on to you. Never. They will not touch you. They will insist that you come to them. Never hold you. It will go into a strap.
Yeah.
And then the strap will decide. Yeah. No, the action of holding on to someone is flawed.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the same as social dynamics. If you reach for someone or come to someone, or they got you.
Yeah.
They got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. You need to hold the high ground.
Yep.
You need to have people come to you. And as soon as they do, you have the upper hand.
Yeah.
Over the top.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked a little bit about newcomers to the sport. So is there anything that athletes, but in particular lay people, can do to avoid some of these catastrophic injuries that you talked about?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say the first thing right away is if you are thinking about arm wrestling, don't go so hard. Really don't. Like, I mean, I know that's just a silly thing for me to probably say because nobody's going to listen to that. Get with the club. Get with the club. You want to not get hurt, get with the club. Do the exercises. Do hammer curls. Look at your hand, okay? There's a process of shoulder alignment. The thing that really breaks you is spiral pressure, okay? Now, arm wrestling breaks happen in all sorts of positions. People say, it's this position. No, it happens all over, okay? But the thing that's really causing it is this spin. Basically like when you're throwing a ball.
Yep.
Right? You're throwing a ball, or like in martial arts, a key lock, like when they grab the wrist and they stick.
Yep.
Okay, it's the same. Arm wrestling is like a self-imposed key lock, like you're trying to throw a 1,000-pound ball and it's not
moving, and you're cranking it.
And you're gonna try and throw it. And that spin through the body has to translate through this bone. And we're not really designed to throw things that are 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, like we're designed to throw to a certain degree, but not that. We're not designed really to do that motion. So we shouldn't even do it when we arm wrestle. Understand that you're gonna win by coming over top of the person's hand.
Yep.
Or now this is what we try and teach everybody this. It's outside arm wrestling. It's what you call a top roll, a post. This upwards drive, this upwards pulling up into a person's finger, and then you bend your wrist or roll. This is safe. Do that. You're probably not going to get hurt. As soon as you start to come forward, bring the shoulder forward, you're likely going to start to have spiral pressure more. Not that you can't have it outside, but more likely. If you're gonna come forward, what you want to do is you want to be behind your arm. Okay, so it's a push as opposed to here. A spiral. Okay, so this bad, this good.
So keep the elbow inside.
Yeah, and don't arm wrestle if you don't drink a lot of milk and work out. Like, don't be doing it. It's crazy.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit before about how what you've done with your training process, your rehab process, but just talk a little bit about how you specifically have dealt with injuries when it comes to recovery and training. So, you've been injured, you've gone to see my colleague Jay, and then now you're rehabbing. So what is your recovery, your rehabilitation work look like at that time, and what does your training look like around that time?
Like post-surgery?
Post-injury, yeah.
I very much, and this doesn't even have to do with injury so much, but now I just listen to my body so much, and if it doesn't feel good, I don't do it.
Okay.
And if it feels good, I'm happy to do it. I try to get back on the horse as quick as possible. That's what I do. I tore my bicep, and 8 days later I was on the table arm wrestling. I had elbow surgery, I think.
Hey, I hope Jay's not listening.
Jay, believe me, Jay knows. Jay knows. I had surgery, and I was on an arm wrestling table, I think 2 days after my surgery.
Okay.
Now, I'm very responsible. I'm not being an idiot, right? Yep. I'm on that table, and I'm just doing what I can.
Sure.
That's it. And I tell my partners, it's a lot about communication, Some therapy is done as an individual, some, you do together. And at that point, communication is super important. Talk to them, have them be nice to you.
Yep.
Understand that things are progressive. Understand that things take time. I focus a lot on blood flow and understand that the body has the information inside of it. It just needs to be fed,
So one thing that I like very much that you said, what was the name of that film again?
Strolling Under the Skin.
I got to look that up, man.
It's a great
because
little clip.
I like the idea of how you said, I am just doing movements every day to get fluids through those tissues. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, that is such a brilliant idea, right? And it's not meaning necessarily I'm working hard, I'm smashing it. It's just fluid through the tissues.
I'm going to tell you one of the most interesting concepts that I've stumbled across through my years. So one of the things that we attract in our sport is a certain type of disorder. Yes. So we attract what I could call hellboys. Okay. I don't know if you've seen these people, but they have, and this isn't from training, this is from birth.
Okay.
They have one limb that is like mega.
Okay.
You ever seen
Yeah.
these people?
Yeah. So you can. I can't right now. The name of the term escapes me. The medical terminology for that. But yes, I have seen that before.
And I think that there's a few things that cause it. Okay, I don't think that every single person like this has this disorder. However, I do believe that one of the reasons why people have this disorder is an arterial imbalance from the heart. Right? So the one limb gets like way better.
More perfusion.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? So that means from the time they are, like by the time they come out of the womb, they are ready. Okay? And so what that tells me is, and when you look at the one arm and when you look at the other arm, that's not even the same person. And to a point where, yes, it has better health, it has better recovery, it has better ability, but it goes all the way to the attachment points are different. Like the one arm will have like low attachment points, and the other points is attached like a caveman. It's like, and that is just from blood. So I feel very strongly that, you know, what the human design is supposed to look like if we were somehow perfectly fed, perfectly oxygenated, I think we would be even more spectacular. So that's something that arm wrestling's taught me, is that so much is just about feeding the tissues so that they can properly express
Their potential.
Yes.
Okay. No, I love that. I think that makes so much sense. And already I'm thinking about ways I'm going to change what I tell my patients post-operatively, you know, just based on this conversation. Because I think that there's so much gold there.
I've had incredible results. I have. I've you know, 2012, you know, I've gone on to win world championships. Right now I'm still heavyweight world champion, you know. I've been told there's nothing there. I've been told there's no cartilage. I've been told that, you know, I should stop doing it. You know.
So, perfect segue. Next question. What does the future hold for Devon Larratt where arm wrestling is concerned?
I will continue to compete for as long as I can.
Yep.
At the highest level I can. I will continue with this experiment that I'm running. I'm going to continue this Way of the Giant Pumpkin thing. I told myself I'd give myself a good 5 or 7 years before I, you know, considered wrapping it up. And I know that there's a lot of issues with it, but it's fascinating to me. So I'll continue this experiment. So I'll compete more. I want to do more in terms of the organization and the promotion of the sport. I get a lot from that. You know, I want to introduce it into more people's lives, children, veterans, people who could benefit. Yeah, and just have fun.
You know, it's when I hear you say, you know, being ambassador for the sport, introducing it to children and stuff. It's funny. It's such a dichotomy between what you previously did.
Yeah.
Like, and in that, like, you're trying to be as menacing as possible, and then to, you know, and it's not to say that arm wrestling is not menacing, but then the aspect that you're talking about, being an ambassador and introducing it to the children, it's just so weird to look at that dichotomy, right? And look at how different those two images are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
did you ever think that you'd be like being the ambassador and, hey,
no,
let's get your kids involved?
No, I certainly didn't. I mean, I've kind of evolved into it where I'm one of the people who's who's influential in the sport. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of people who have come from, you know, loving the sport for one reason or another. Many of us have competed. And many of us have understood the value that it has, you know, outside of just sport.
Okay.
And I think that many of us are motivated to, you know, keep that growing as a part of what it is to be in this community of people.
Yep.
And yeah, kids is a big part of that, right?
Cool. Yeah. And how often are you competing now?
I want to compete more this year. Now, at the highest level, I mean, if I can do like 2 or 3 big shows. Now, it's interesting because I was competing super heavyweight, okay? And super heavyweight is hard.
Okay. So what's the weight cutoff, or where's the weight cutoff between heavyweight and super heavyweight?
It depends on the league, but 253 is where I'm at right now. So 115 kilo. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm currently residing, but I could do 110, I could do 105. Here's the thing. It's so much easier on my body. For me to compete at a weight, it doesn't require the rest. It doesn't require the build-up. I can do it more frequently, and it's much more enjoyable. Mm-hmm. I don't have to live such a crazy Spartan life. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm competing super heavyweight and I'm doing so optimally,
yeah,
man, my life has to be so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't have a lot of fun, So heavyweight lets me kind of lead more of a regular life, do more things that I like to do, and have the ability to compete more often. So I'll be competing here probably in a couple weeks.
Okay. And
then probably every 2 months or so this year, I'm hoping.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that 2 month break in between, is that the amount of time necessary for you to sort of rehab and train, or is it just an arbitrary time?
Yeah, arbitrary. The longer I have, the more I can peak.
Okay.
Okay. You give me 2 years, and I will present to you the most beautiful flower. The
biggest damn pumpkin you've ever seen.
Beautiful and pristine.
Yeah.
But if you let me kind of just lead a lifestyle where I'm competing more frequent, I won't get the same peak. However, having done it for such a long time, a weight class it's manageable. It's manageable. But if I were to lose and try, the longer you give a person, the higher their peak can be. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Okay. Second last question. So you said that you are training about 3 times a day, each of the different each of the different phases or chains. Roughly how much time per day are you training?
I'd say now it's more like lifestyle, really. Mm-hmm. Like I basically train all day. Really. Like, I mean, it's hard for me to even tell you like how much time exactly, because if I'm at home, I will do a lift, do a session, sit on the couch, do some admin, go over, and it'll be like that from morning till night.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just continuously do my work. I don't exhaust myself the way I did when I was a kid.
Sure.
When I was younger.
Yeah.
But I'd say if you want to total it up, I mean, a lot of the work I do is singles, so like just singular lifts. So I mean that's just a few seconds,
sure.
Right? But if I said 3 sessions and each session is maybe an average of maybe 45 minutes, and then I might have a practice, and a practice will go longer. Practice might go 2.5 hours. And then singles all through the day. I mean, maybe 3 and 3.5 hours on a normal day, 3.5 hours. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I very much enjoy it. Sometimes it's less.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more.
Does your wife ever go, enough, Darren? or Devon, enough?
Balance. I'm really bad with balance. I'm really bad.
Listen, man. My wife is always telling me, like, yeah. I'm a type A personality. Like, I have one speed, and it's going all the time.
I get obsessed with stuff, and that's all I want to do. My wife and I have been together since high school.
Okay.
So she knows me better than I know myself.
Sure.
So she knows what she's in for. She knows what she signed up for.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, last question, young man. It's funny I can call you that. But last question, young man. Where can people find you online?
Well, I have YouTube. I have Instagram. I have TikTok. I mean, the best place to find me, yeah, is probably Instagram is where I post more of my lifestyle stuff. So you know where I'm at because I'll post a story or whatever, Instagram. But you want to get in touch with me and you're in Ottawa, find the Ottawa High Hookers.
Okay.
Yeah, come and hang out with us. Yeah,
Okay.
come and train with us. Yeah, it's I'm down there. I'm just one of the guys on the team, and I'm down there 3 times a week when I'm at home. So, yeah, come find us in Ottawa. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I lied. Second last question. Just made me, something you said made me think about it. So, you know, in your previous life, it was supposed to, you needed to keep your identities kind of low key and not be out there.
Huh.
You're younger than me, but we're of the same vintage.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, how do you find all this social media? Like, you know, because you got the Instagram, Facebook, the Twitter, the TikTok, the what?
It's interesting, isn't it?
How do you find all of this?
It's very interesting. I love it. I don't read, but I consume a lot of social media. Mm-hmm. I do. It's very interesting times that we live in. I find that the 3 are. I use primarily YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are my 3 favorite. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's Facebook also, but Facebook I find is more family.
Yep.
To me, Facebook is family stuff. TikTok is very interesting. TikTok is so condensed. Mm-hmm. I feel like you get the most information in the shortest time, like you have to be very precise about what your message is on TikTok. Mm-hmm. TikTok is about very quickly expressing a feeling or something that is attractive to someone. Which is beautiful. I love TikTok. I personally find TikTok to be potentially the most addictive of all of them. Like if I get on TikTok, like
it's like, where did that hour go?
Like that's what I like. That's what I like. That's what I like.
Their algorithm, they have that down.
Yeah, they do. Instagram, I really like as well when it comes to images. I'm a big fan of the Instagram images. YouTube for me is where I get all my information on the community. Mm-hmm. So the arm wrestling community is rich on YouTube. Basically everything that's going on, you follow all the key channels and you are going to know everything that's happening in the sport. And that's basically, I follow arm wrestling. I follow a few sports loosely. Yep. And I follow arm wrestling super intense. Okay. So yeah, it's wild, man. I love the social medias. I personally just record and post. Yeah. Most of my stuff is basically blog, and and then sometimes it gets a bit refined. But yeah, it's wild times we live in.
One last thing, given your previous occupation, so people always talk about TikTok, because it's being owned by China. Does that ever concern you, bother you?
Oh man, no, no, it doesn't. Like, I mean, in the end, we're all one thing. Yeah. Like whether it's China, there's so many points of separation between the top and where I am, and we're all one thing. I mean, whether China's calling the shots or U.S., it ends up being the same thing. I don't. And what information are they learning? You're talking about the algorithm pushing, how they're pushing us crap and they're learning?
Both. Number one, their TikTok is supposed to be educational, and ours is just debauchery. Love it. They want us to be dumber. But also, there is the idea of whatever information that they're learning from us or taking from us.
I'm not concerned about any of that stuff. Whatever, man. Whatever. Seriously, I feel like I use the stuff to get what I'm looking for. Okay. I think the algorithm gives you what you're looking for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Hey, well, it's been great. Yeah, I'm so glad.
You know what? From now on, I'm always going to be thinking about how I grab somebody's hand. Because it's like,
oh my God. Shake hands like this.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's just like, oh my God. Yeah. Like everybody, what are they learning from my handshake?
Yeah, well, hey, I remember when I first got in the sport, like arm wrestlers shake hands more than any subculture in the world.
Yeah.
We're going around handshake all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun little game, man. Yeah.
Well, you know, the one thing, so at the hospital, they have different glove sizes, right?
Yeah.
And the largest size that they bring, I'm sure they have bigger sizes, but the largest size they bring is a size 9.
Yeah.
Right? And I wear a size 9 glove, and they make fun of me because I wear a size 9 glove.
Yeah.
And all I could think about when I shook your hand is like, why does my hand feel like a baby's hand compared to yours?
Yeah, you got strong hands. You got big hands.
Jesus,
Yeah.
but they're nothing compared to the size of yours, man.
Well, I'm a professional. I'm supposed to have big hands. Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, Devon, man, this has been a blast, and I definitely got to chat with you again about other topics. But once again, I'd like to say thank you very much for spending this last hour with me and teaching me about all things arm wrestling related. It's been an honor having you here, and I can't wait to put this video out because I think it's going to be amazing.
Thank you so much, buddy.
No worries, brother.
And well, next time I'll bring you down to the club, maybe. Yeah.
Cool.